What I'm really going to talk about is what is the basic concept of this in India, and what the whole purpose of this is trying to convert the education to a transformative learning where we continue to we'll get a competent doctor in our kind of a country. So if you really look in last few years, what has changed into an health professional education? As you know, we all have changed from blackboard to smartboard. We all have seen the complete transition. All of us in our own lifetime have used blackboard, and now we all use smartboards. Crowdsourcing of knowledge by students, this is another major change. Before 96 there was no internet in India, and once India got the internet, I think the slowly the now the knowledge is so much by the students that the teachers, I remember when I was a student, we used to get all knowledge by our teachers. We used to take notes. Books were very costly. But today, I think the students many times have more access to the knowledge. And increased number of students. That is another problem which has happened with 250 students and less teachers. I think the contact between student and teacher has gone down. So that is what has changed in our country. Now, if you look at the clinical practice, 1950 to 75 was a patient-centered clinical practice. It was called as a high-touch years practice. Patient was seen by the doctor, talked by, touched by him. In 75, first the ultrasound came, and then followed a plethora of laboratory center, radiology centered years, where we started working on high-tech years. And we started getting everything about the patient without really touching the patient. And in the last 2 decades, we have seen more screen hours, especially I'm sure during COVID time, you have spent more time on screen than onto the patients, and doctor centered kind of a practice. It has its own implications. We all have gone through this. So patients now only want good treatment, and that's another thing which is want. Most of the patients now expect a very good treatment, but they also want good experience at the hospitals. They want everybody to treat them very well. It's not that patient is sleeping or sleeping anywhere. With all this control and computers, we have lost novelty, intuition, trust of our patients, compassion and empathy. And that is was very visible, by which we saw many doctors being hit by the patients and their relatives. So if you look at the changing doctor patient relationship, past it was a paternalistic approach. The doctor was the like a parent to the patient, and physician was the sole knowledge source. Today it is a diagnostics data stating, and it's algorithmic way. It is an impersonal care, lack of empathy, and cookie cutter approach. You are trying to treat every patient in the same way, which is never true. But future is going to be artificial intelligence, big data, precision medicine, knowledge access universal, and what you call as an adapted reality, and it's extended reality, adapted learning. So there's a lot of new things which are coming up, which we are have to prepare our students for all this. So we need to think about a curriculum which is globally integrated curriculum, which has all the new things which are there. However, it should have also attitudes, communication, ethics, and early clinical exposure, IT research, language, and most important means it needs alignment with the World Federation of Medical Education by 2023. So whatever the principles of WFME have given us till 2023, we have to adopt that and put it into our curriculum. So that was a task with which the whole thing started. So if you really look at William Mayo, who said many years ago, the best treatment interest of the patient is the only interest to be considered. In order to that sick may have benefit of advancing knowledge, union of forces is necessary. Now the question is, are our graduates ready for that quality healthcare delivery? At least the whole system has to be ready for this. So this was a problem in HP in India. If you look at in a cognitive domain, we used to had a rote memory of MCQs. Memorization has taken toll on the clinical reasoning. Maybe it was MHCET or the kind of entrance exams we have. subject-based, undefined outcomes, limited clinical context, and defensive medicine. Now everybody is worried about whether I'll be sued in the court. The another major issue was people were never getting the proper skills, poor skills development, no certification or documentation, and ethical issues with patient, unstructured training. And there was a term called hyposkilia. Last year, the Kandalai oration in the Surgeon Society I gave on hyposkilia. And affective domain is the poor communication skills. Doctors disconnected from patients and all other issues which were there very common with our commonly seen in the country. One of my teachers said very nicely, 40 years ago when I entered this profession, doctors did not know much. No ultrasound, no CT, no MRI. Diagnosis with uncertainty. We used to do something called as exploratory laparotomy, but still patients trusted our teachers. Today, doctors have much more information about patients and their diseases, minute up to 2 millimeter, but still patients do not trust doctors. I think this is a state of affair we have come through. Look at this particular picture, empathy in the age of electronic medical record. On the left hand side, you have a classic picture of the doctor. And now we are seeing in 2019 Lancet that somebody is sitting on a computer and the patient is being seen. This is a picture drawn by an African child. Now, this is a perception we are giving to the society. So when you look at our education, we have a didactic teaching was main concern, then inadequate community exposure, lack of self-directed learning and research experience, lack of student-centered learning, active learning and integration, and not much emphasis on attitude, communication, and ethics. Students only train for NEET and not for practice. That was our major concern, which we still have. So another issue is that ideally general physician, specialist, super specialist, and super specialist, and the ideally ratio of this should be that there should be more general physicians and less super specialists. But we are going to our world where we have more super specialists and very few general physicians. Now the issue is, this is a very difficult issue to solve, but this is what we also a fact, and this is where we are heading to in next few years. So it needs a paradigm change. So somebody needs to transform this. So we have to go beyond this change, and that is what we are talking about. It is not so easy to change a curriculum. Cognitive domain, from rote memory, we want to go for clinical reasoning to problem solving. In a psychomotor domain, we for motor skills, we want simulations, deliberative practice, feedback, newer models for complex skill operations. And in affective domain, from absence of role models, we want to formalize informal and hidden curriculum to make it explicit. The time has come when we need to do all this. So I remember in 2010, this was one document which I was part of, this document which came out called as Vision 2015, and the whole concept was to provide quality of health care to all Indians by promoting excellence in medical education. And it was thought that by 2015 we'll be able to put this curriculum, and there were a lot of experts in the country who put forward all their wisdom to really bring about this kind of a document. But of course, things never go the way we want to go. So there was a lot of discussion, but it took a little slower time. And the whole concept was, we need to create an Indian medical graduate who has 5 roles: clinician, leader, communicator, lifelong learner, and professional. Many countries have their own ways of really looking at it. US has its own ways of looking at it. Canada has its own way. Australia has its own way. But Indian had these 5 roles in mind. Now, to see that how do you develop that graduate, we have another major block in our country is that we have a subject-based competence subsystem. We cannot really shift towards a problem-based education. And therefore, the subjects have their own competencies which build a role-based competencies, and that would make them an Indian medical graduate. So there was a UG group. I was not part of this UG group, but they came out with these guidelines. And they said that, okay, foundation course, early clinical exposure, integration, skill training, and skill lab. So initially we took these ideas, and these are the various ideas which are included into the curriculum. And this is where from we begin with the recommendations of the UG group. So when a curriculum was reformed in India, there's a need for wider clinical exposure. So the best way is to start it from the first MBBS. And it has been many countries it has been done, and it has been successful. There's a more emphasis on skills, attitudes, and communications along with knowledge. So taking away from knowledge to skills and attitudes, make our students lifelong learners and comply with the WMFE guidelines, and emphasis on learning on its own sake. We should try to promote self-learning, and also we think that once we learn for our own sake, we get reward and recognition. These were the objectives. I mean, this is where everybody began with that time. So when somebody does a curriculum, what does he look? You look at the disease pattern of our country at primary, secondary, tertiary level. We take World Bank data, health data, Government of India data, what is the disease pattern. Then we take faculty perception. What does the faculty think about curriculum? Then we also see the people who have passed out, and we look at their curriculum, graduate perception, and suggestions from various societal groups, students, health researchers. What is most important is that whatever is going to work in our country, that is important, not what has worked into USA or UK or Canada. Is this going to work in my country? Is the system going to work in my country? That is what I'm looking for, and we are not just going to copy paste from the West. So key features of this new curriculum which were there, it was competency driven. That means we are trying to push people towards competency. It's not a pure competency curriculum, because that is a problem based curriculum. Aligned and integrated while maintaining primacy of the subjects. That is another our issue, that we do not want to currently disturb the subjects. We don't want a medical college where no subjects and there are only teachers. This is what exact presents in the problem based learning, where there are blocks. Focus on outcomes. We want exactly what did the student come out with. Shared responsibility and self-directed learning. That means the student also has responsibility for learning. It's not only teacher who is responsible, but college and student is equally responsible, and patient and learner centered kind of an education. So that came with idea with this competency driven curriculum, or what we call, usually involves all specialties together, better implemented by problem based education. But in India, we have mainly subject teaching. Therefore, it was proposed to have a competency driven approach in an existing subject based pattern with integration. So there was a purist curriculum, and there is an Indian frame of reference. So we must first understand that purists may have a different way of looking at competency based curriculum. We have to see what will work in our country and how do we take it further. So this is one of a chart where we have all subjects. They create their subject based competencies, and you translate the subject based specific competencies to global competencies of role based, and that would create an thing. So when all of you know about it, so I'm not going to go into details of all that, but I'm going to give you some of the issues which are related to that, which is everybody's mind. What are the positives about curriculum? What are the concerns? What are the challenges? And how are you going to implement and support this curriculum? And activities like yours is a great support, I must tell you. So what are the positives about the curriculum? The first thing is it's an official document and it is implemented now. Emphasis on skills and attitude, higher level of learning. The first thing this curriculum has trying to implement is they have cut down the didactic lectures to 1/3, and there's more emphasis on activities. Maybe it's a self-directed activity or a small group activity. Outcomes more important, and early clinical relevance and certifiable competency. So we want people to really do a particular kind of thing, and somebody needs to observe that in a small one-to-one way or smaller group and see that yes, he has achieved that. Then secondly, competencies are well defined. All of you know there are 3 big volumes which some of you are now going to study the GYNAC, There may be lacunae, but over a period of time they can be refined. Structure fitted into the subject-based system, and these are all competencies are created by the subject experts. This is the work of subject experts. We have done this, and competencies and sub-competency framework has been given, because the whole concept is that we should have sub-competencies for the subjects and better clinical context. And the next problem is problem solving or case-based question if we get the exam called next. Now, when we look at the competency framework which has been created, and probably this workshop is going to be revolve around this competency framework, what has been done, the sub competencies for each subject in all domains. It's a knowledge, skill, attitude, ethics, and everything. Definition of acceptable level of performance, and that's what you may have to do it. Vertical and horizontal integration, which has already been outlined, in which areas is needed and what is essential. Then Miller's pyramid has been used. That means you have included the components like shows and knows and knows how. Now, when this is being done, you have to really understand that as an undergraduate student, we cannot allow him to do a procedure. So therefore, the certification or does has been included only in the internship, because it will be a medical legal issue, especially if the student is allowed to practice some kind of a procedure in an undergraduate. It can be done, many colleges have done, you and me have done, but to put it into the particular framework, you require a legal framework also. Now, this is a kind of a framework which has already been there, and the document is concordance with these global competencies of GMR and Medical Council that has identified it as Indian Medical Graduate, and now it's a NMC. Now, it has a broad framework of list of competencies, and it is made by the subject experts, and each subject has sub competencies or predefined outcomes or abilities. One of our expert group member, he says these are objectancies. That means what? It's a combination of objectives and competencies. So your group can define what are the core competencies and which can be has to be really done, or you can think about doing even EPAs and core competencies at the end of this particular course. Now, if you look at the whole construct, of any, this is the AAMC construct. So you have an EPA which is there, that is interested activity, professional activity, what they call, and then you have a domain of competence, and then you have these competencies, and then for each competency there are milestones. Now, in our curriculum, sometimes milestones are there in a competency also, especially a subject level. And then normally for multiple milestones will develop a competency, and multiple domains of competency will develop an EPA. So this is a kind of a framework which has been developed by AAMC, and that is what we have, a little different framework where we have the subject-based competencies and we convert them into the role-based competencies to convert them into the patient. Now, this is very important to understand, because once you do that, then you know that ultimately all the sub-competencies will merge together to develop a competency which will be given, which will be acquired by the student at the end of the terminology. Maybe it's a long path, longitudinal path, or some may be the short path, but ultimately the competencies will be developed over the end of the time when he completely finishes his curriculum. The second components, many components are there. I'll try to say few. One of them is integration and alignment. If you look at the Hardin's hierarchy or ladder, what they call it, there are 12 levels of ladder. Now, considering the conditions in our hospital and the kind of hierarchies and the situation which is there, we have selected middle 4. Temporal coordination, which is one of the easiest one, sharing, correlation, and nesting. We have purposely not included very high levels of alignment because it is not possible in our own settings. Secondly, one of the things which is in this curriculum, we have said emphasis on skill enhancement, defined certification and documentation. That means there are some certifications have to be done and documented into the curriculum on a logbook. For example, whether he has given an injection, he has conducted a delivery in internship under supervision, it may be, but it has to be documented. Simulation has a major role today, and simulation labs are growing in India. I personally feel this curriculum has definitely done its job of developing skill labs in each medical college. And slowly, I feel this simulation kind of thing will grow, and there will be much better practical experiences everybody has. And everybody has realized during this COVID that how important these simulation labs are for continuing education. And most important, it has to be a structured training over a period of time. Another major kind of an contribution of this curriculum was to develop an ATCOM module. And the whole concept was that we never had a attitude or professionalism based curriculum. So this was the first kind of a shift from a knowledge based to curriculum to the skill based and affective professionalism towards this. Because if you really see, if you meet a doctor or meet a teacher, after few years, what do you really remember? Is also remember how he treated you, how the patient doctor behaved with you. So this is an important concept and component of your competencies, and this needs to be developed and needs to sip in your mind from the first year. And that was the reason why ATCOM was really developed. Emphasis on communication skills, patient needs. It was formalizing the informal curriculum, which we thought that people will learn by seeing a teacher. This is formalizing officially, and awareness of ethical issues and attitudes of physician. Now, case-based modules incorporating the values of professionalism. I'm sure there could be somebody said that ethics cannot be taught to the students. Yes, ethics can never be taught to anyone, but he can be made aware of it. He can be shown, yes, these are the right paths, and the students have to walk on there. So this is what something which is more of a showcase and awareness, making them understand. So these kind of attitudes seep in their whole mind. So this was created. Everybody knows about ATCOM, so I would not really go into details. It was structured in the GMR, and now it is one of the model which is used not only in India, but it is in many countries. This has been adopted in local by, and you find that such a thing, people have built on this, people have published books on this, and I think people have come out with a detailed kind of an competencies, and each competency, what should be the exercise, case basis, objectives, what are the kind of assessment patterns you can do. So there is a lot of work which is going on, and I think that is what is the success of a curriculum. So in 1997, curriculum was also good, and it had outlined the basic fundamentals of curriculum. In 2019, curriculum should achieve it in practice. This was emphasized in 1997 curriculum. So we need to see that it is put, and we have taken 30 years to go through this for the whole process. Now, what is the concern everybody is really facing with? This is not a pure competency curriculum. Yes, I agree with that, and this is customized to Indian situation and needs. But we want to see it achieves. You know, it can be tweeted, it can be refined. The experts like you can really make many suggestions and refine the whole competencies. You can create EPAs, and I would like you to do that so that it is helpful to the broader community of obstetric and gynecologists, customized to Indian situation, understanding of all faculty, and need for IT and other infrastructure. So you need to develop this whole framework, and we need to think about technology, training environment, instruments, training programs, people, and feedback. So it has to be a narrative description of the pre-interested learner and the interested learner, and that is what we need to really go ahead in next few years. So another concern is work of subject experts. It needs integration. Yes, I mean, we have a subject walls between the two subjects, I can say, and therefore we need to break these walls, and this will happen slowly. You know, these things take time. It's not one day I say that integration is going to take place or the walls in the subjects are going to break. It is going to be a slow process, but I hope everybody realizes it and it takes over in next few years. Assessment of ATCOM is little loose, but it has to be a workplace-based assessment. And as I said, at undergraduate level, we want to begin it with it. At a postgraduate level, workplace-based assessment will probably make it more solid and they will be probably imbibe it much better. Then this has to be a transformative change. Commitment of teachers is extremely important, and we have about more than 1 lakh teachers, and we have been able to train through basic workshop only about 45 to 50,000 teachers. What about others? What about clinicians? I'm very happy that people like you all gynecologists have come together, which the clinicians, according to me, clinical teacher is a very rare. A good clinical teacher is a rare kind of an commodity. So you are all committed, and I really congratulate you. But we need that kind of a commitment from teachers. List of skills need to change, and assessment must align competencies with universities and colleges, which is happening slowly. Now, what are the challenges? The first thing, as I said, interdepartmental collaboration, leadership and guidance from the curricular committee. So there is a structure to the implementation, role of MEU in the faculty training, as well as the network of medical, our regional centers and nodal centers. Then frequency communication between departments, need for supervision and planning, time management, sharing of resources, students feedback, and programmatic evaluation. I think these are some of the challenges which I'm sure all of you know, but over a period of time, this all will be come across it. Another issue which most of the teachers say, work overload. There are less teachers in the medical colleges, but if you really see, for the clinical teachers, numbers have increased. I understand in government colleges many times the workload is very high, and in private medical colleges also you find the shortage of teachers. So over a period of time, this curriculum has allowed even if you see the adjunct teachers, and that is where probably we need to really work on. Unwillingness to learn new skills, because many of the professors and higher people don't want to learn new skills. They feel what we were doing was right, but it's not a new method, it's the new way of really teaching and taking. So it's just adopting to the whole new techniques and technology. Like everybody during COVID have started using Zoom, go to webinar, electronic media. I think the same thing, if you really put in little heart, these are not very difficult things to learn. The next question is no resources and time. They say, where is the time? But remember, there is a lot of scope for self-directed learning. Your wisdom can be very short period of time, and you can ask people to work on it. You can use flipped classrooms, you can use internet, you can use various other technologies, so that you can really get connected to your students through media and web. And that's the way we can really work on this. And this is very common. If you are able to follow up our WhatsApp group, which are 250 messages every day, I'm sure this can also be done very effectively. Of course, there is an inertia. Any system, when you want to change, there is an inertia. Many people don't want to really change it. There's a complacency. People are happy with what is going on. People don't want to really do this kind of a change. But remember, any system requires only 15% of people in the active people to change. If 15% people change, rest 50% people change, and 35 or 15 never change. So that's the way the systems work in all over the world. Then difficulty creating meaningful assessment tools, and that is the task which country is now. There are a lot of new material, literature. It's very important to see how the whole environment reacts to this. So there have been books coming, there are workshops going on, webinars going on, courses going on. There are a lot of assessment books going on, new systems are coming, learning management systems are coming. So I think this is going to make the job of teacher little easier. And of course, there is going to be increased administrative burden because of the record and documentation. That also, people are creating portfolios, logbooks, and electronic logbooks, which will reduce the administrative burden over a period of time and focus on minimally acceptable standards. In a clinical subject, I find aligning our teaching learning to core competencies and assessment to competencies is going to be a challenge. Yes, we have to first, in the beginning, it is going to be challenge, but once you go through these kind of courses and you have a clarity what is important and what is not important, you prioritize, this is going to be an easy. High dependence on formative assessment, yes, and that is where students learn all over the world. Most of the students, and you as a postgraduate, have learned through formative assessments, and that's where students really competent. And you have a assessment which is summative for passing, but you learn maximally into formative assessments. University exams will hardly be able to judge the competence, but university exam is mainly for the summative. You mainly have to see that your students become competent during your teaching. And dedicated formative assessments have to be recorded. People have to change that culture of formative assessment being documented in portfolios and logbooks, and somebody needs to sincerely do it, and that's where you find the success all over the world is. And doctor patient ratio versus competent doctor versus patient ratio, this is what we are looking for. We don't want just doctor patient ratios, we want a competent doctor to patient ratios, and that is what your aim should be. Now, when you come to issues of CBM in OBGYN, thanks to Amita, higher level of Miller's pyramid, as in most OBGYN competencies, the assessment becomes more subjective. Yes, very true. When somebody is doing a does, it becomes more unstructured and less standardized. But there are ways of really trying to bring little objectivism in this, and there could be mixed methods. Subjectivity is not wrong. Tejinder always say that subjectivity is not wrong. In a formative assessment, if you have subjectivity, it is absolutely fine. What is important is we should train our teachers and bring the structure to this assessment so that you can really assess the higher levels of Miller's pyramid, and not only just ticking 1, 2, 3, 4. Convincing OBGYN faculty for implementation of CBME, burden of increased involvement of formative assessment. As I said, as the time will go, there'll be lot of technology and other things will come to your help to do this. And educational training of clinicians is essential. Yes, and that is what is being done. But I must tell you, I feel there are many clinicians who have been successfully involved into all this. And I feel all over India now, there are many clinicians who are involved into education. And assessment in university and summative exams is how can be tailored to assessing competency as a whole. And that's the challenge which universities are going to face. So how do you really go about implementation and support? Now, I'm sure there is going to be variability into the colleges, and nodal centers, MEUs, trainers, faculty development is going on, and we need to do it more. It's going to be a long-term process. But I must say that MCI and now NMC have been very, very supportive about this. And they have put in hard work into faculty development, multi-level change, multiple stakeholders, directors of medical education, universities. There could be areas where there could be pockets where there could be resistance or there could be inertia. But over a period of time, I feel we'll be able to implement this across the country. What is important is changing the minds of faculty. And I think if you look back in last 3 or 4 years, it has happened. It's not that complete. There are a lot of enthusiasm which is seen. The fact that Sanjay is conducting these kind of courses and there is a response, I'm sure this is his 8th or 10th course, which is a successful course, and that only shows how much we are trying to change. So there is a plan. We need to do, deliver, assess. We need to check what we have analyzed, and then we need to act and design. So this is a process of curricular implementation which goes over years. And therefore we have a CISP, and everybody knows what is Curriculum Implementation Support Program. So we have come out with many booklets, and the last booklet we came out was with the online learning and assessment module, and that came about say a week ago. And this is also a good addition to the whole booklets. Now it's almost about 15 documents, out of which about 11 are for the curriculum implementation support, and we have been coming out through those in a big way. Okay, now if you look at the factors, NMC MCI initiative, stepwise implementation, we are, in fact, the COVID has taken a hit, but we will take this further in next years. The NMC has already put down all the schedules again, and I'm sure it will be implemented. RTC and MEU and CC will help you. These are new concepts. Variability in capacity of people. There are 591 medical colleges, and they will grow to 600 or 700. And we need to work on colleges which have poorly developed educational units. There is excellence on one hand, and there is a poor on the other side. So we have to balance these two in our country. So I think I will end with Hardin's paper. You know, Hardin wrote in 2007 a wonderful paper about curriculum implementation. What he really said that there are three different ways by which people react or faculty react. One is ostrich. What ostrich stage? He is in the sand and he says, nothing is going to happen. Let me sleep again. And he will just don't do anything. The second one is a peacock. We will enthusiastically dance. He will try to implement something and then he will say, he will forget about it. But what is important is a beaver who is a slow drinker and is slowly trying to see, absorb it and trying to implement. So we are going to see all kinds of people into this kind of a curriculum. But what our aim is that let the concepts reach to the students. Students and the whole community is going to find. When we are working in a health scenario, we don't only have to think about teachers or students. We have to think about community at a large. We have to think about the healthcare at a large. What will you do if you get pandemics like our country, like COVID? Is our country health system and everybody is prepared for this? And that is what matters actually when you think about curriculum at a large. So foundation course EC and integration has been successfully introduced, and there are sub, it's been, you find it will get refined day by day. Culture and environment of the institution has been changing. Faculty development is in progress. In spite of COVID, we had more than 400 workshops on CISP2. ACME we could really conduct, and now we are going to start the revised basic course also, as well as basic course for PG institutes. Role of universities and colleges, and of course, reward time and effort put in the teaching. That is our next concern, and that is what I think all should do to the faculty. So education is not the feeling only of a pail, but it's lighting of a fire. So don't try to see that it is all your responsibility to teach students. It's a shared responsibility. You have to light the fire in the student so that he himself achieves with your help. And that is what we need to really do this in this curriculum. So medical education in India needs a paradigm change. New GMR guidelines, contextual competency driven curriculum, change competency framework supported by ATCOM will achieve in practice the principles that were emphasized in 97 curriculum. And we have faculty development network, CISP, curricular governance, educational monitoring, proper technology will help us implementing this curriculum. Of course, there are challenges, but this is the need of the hour. And I feel groups like you have a major role in contributing to the growth and development of this curriculum, because you are the leaders who are going to take this further into your own systems. You are going to help your specialty to take this further. There may be challenges, but at least you will develop lot of work so that it is easier for others to follow. So at the end, again, I would like to thank all my people who have always helped in this, involved in all this group. At the same time, Dr. Sanjay Bedi, who is, the name is last, but it is not the small name. He has really worked hard over years to make this program successful.
CBME in OBG. This is Amita, and I'm going to just give you an overview of what we intend to do. I'll just put forth certain points quickly. So essentially, this endeavor is a teamwork of all the obstetricians and gynecologists engaged as faculty in medical colleges of India, and it is meant to facilitate the implementation of CBME in the subject of obstetrics and gynecology. Now, the whole concept of CBME, as Sir said, can be divided into understanding of the CBME and implementation of the CBME. We as medical teachers have to take our students from the knowing to the doing path. And when we come to the understanding, what we have to see is that as compared to the traditional curriculum, what is new in this? And this can be divided into certain categories. So there will be new responsibilities for institutions. There will be new roles for faculty and students. There will be new approaches for teaching and learning. There will be new approaches to assessment decisions. There will be new technologies. And lastly, maybe when accreditation becomes compulsorily, where there will be new responsibility for accreditors. And the purpose would be to make the OBG curriculum outcome and competency based. Of course, here the outcome is competency. Next, student centric. Third, formative assessment and feedback. Early clinical exposure. A globally relevant, value oriented. And let me tell you that in this process, I believe, as Supe sir again emphasized to us, that it is the formative assessment and feedback which is going to form the backbone of whether we are successful in implementing competency. As sir said, one single university exam will not assess any competency, and competency cannot be developed in one day. It has to be developed over the years, and it is us teachers who will be forming the students towards that. So when we take this, what we are going to do in these sessions, forthcoming sessions, of course, the primary concern will be competency. So we will first take all the OBG competencies, break them down into specific learning objectives, design teaching learning methods, and design assessment method, and most importantly, align all the three, because without alignment of these three things, we are never ever going to become successful. Now there's another type of alignment in the offing here, and that is the alignment between the subject, as sir was saying. So our other sessions will focus on aligning OBG with the other subjects of the same phase, that is the horizontal temporal integration, and then aligning OBG with subjects of different phases by nesting, correlation, and sharing. And we are also ambitious as to say that we would also like to integrate OBG with another profession and make it an interprofessional alignment. Then will be the session on OBG logbook, which is again a very important part of the formative assessment. Which competencies are to be included? And in this, we would like to remind ourselves that it would be good to bring about certain uniformity in what competencies we should include in this logbook. This uniformity can also cater to area specific diversity, and it has also to cater to the feasibility. Not all competencies can be included or should be included in the logbook. And then of course, how to teach these competencies, how to assess these competencies, and of course, as sir said, there would be several challenges in completing or putting into implementation these logbooks. Other new things that can be where OBG can contribute here is foundation course, the student doctor program, and the ATCOM in relation to OBG. We know that there are many things that OBG can teach the undergraduate about attitude, ethics, communication. And overall, we'll have to look at the fact how an OGian can contribute to the development of the roles of an Indian medical graduate as described in the GMR. Number one, the clinician, leader and team member, the communicator, the lifelong learner, and the professional. To summarize, we would like our undergraduate to not only become an competent Indian medical graduate, but also incorporate within him or her a competent, compassionate, primary level obstetrician and gynecologist. So for this purpose, we have already created a Google Classroom for posting resources. There's a WhatsApp group for messages and interactions. And through Google Meet also, we could do some online interaction.